Well, shalom. Thank you for joining us this week. Rabbi Mark Greenberg and Joseph Greenberg here, Tree of Life Bible Society. We are so glad that you've joined us because we and the rest of the Jewish world and many believers are in the middle of Passover week.
Yes, Pesach.
Yes. And so I'm sure that this is the week of matzah, which means you're not eating any leavening at all.
Yeah, I'm a little sick of matzah, to be honest.
It's and when I was a young kid, I could not believe we could not eat any ho-hos or Twinkies. I know they weren't even kosher. But
yeah, you do miss a bagel or a pizza every once in a while.
the pizza was the big thing.
You know, though,
and we're New
matzah
Yorkers,
pizza
so
ain't bad. Matzah pizza is pretty good.
you can come close. You can make it nice, but it's not the real thing.
Yeah.
Amen? Okay, so just like last week, which was an intermediate, we started with the Passover holiday, and we've gone away from the regular reading cycle of walking through the Torah.
We're in the holiday cycle now.
And the holiday cycle of Passover. Last week, we read and discussed a little bit about Exodus chapter 12, which was the Exodus Passover itself.
Yeah, the day of Passover.
The day of Passover.
Putting the blood on the doorposts and all that, and why we do it.
And so since then, there's been this walkthrough of the children of Israel out of Egypt and over to Mount Sinai, where the Ten Commandments is given on the tablets.
And then, unfortunately, we have the golden calf.
Talk about backsliding.
Yes.
Listen, that's not just Jewish people. That's everybody. That's humanity right there. Humanity does have a golden calf. So with all that said, now we're up to a Kol Moed, right, Joe?
Chol Moed. Yes.
Chol Moed.
Yes. Intermediate day of Pesach.
And we see the same thing in the intermediate days with Sukkot, which is a multi-day holiday as well.
Yes.
So we have all of that happening.
But today we're in Exodus 33 and 34.
Because this Shabbat is the last day of Passover, last day of the Feast of Matzah.
Yes.
Amen? All right. So now we're in that place where we're after the golden calf. Moses has received the second set of tablets. And now we're going towards...
We get to see a little bit of what happens afterward, the culture of what's going on. And this is this little section here between Exodus 33:12 and 34, I believe it's 26, is just an excellent... It's got, not only do we see the section in which Moses asks to see the glory of God, and it's a really great passage, but we also get the 13 attributes of God in this portion.
And that, in terms of who God is, really gives some insight. And I can't tell you or stress enough how important that those 13 attributes are still true. And now, are you saying, Rabbi, I can hear it through, right at your screen. Are you saying that Yeshua is not ready to forgive? Well, listen, what does Yeshua say? All those who don't believe in him will go to everlasting contempt, and whoever does are saved.
Amen.
So let's go right there, and let's just spend a few minutes in the 13 attributes of God.
Yeah, we're technically in the Torah portion of Ki Tisa, but we get to refresh our memory because we're just after a whole week of seeing God bring an entire nation to its knees. But here we're going to be reminded of who God is.
Exactly. And that's a good reminder for all of his sons and daughters. And so after Moses makes the request of, please show me your glory, God says, Father says, well, I will cause all my goodness to pass before you instead. And for no man can see my face and live. We have to remind ourselves, and I just want to be sure that we understand this, that is the whole reason for Yeshua. Yeshua is not only the one who allows salvation to come forth, but he is the chief intercessor, the Kohen HaGadol, between us and the Father. He's always making intercession for us and allows us to see the face of God. We have a name that we can call upon God.
Yes, Yeshua.
Yeshua, or Jesus. And so he continues on, and he's in the place, in the cleft of the rock, and God passes before him.
Yes.
And this is what he says. He says what? Adonai, Adonai, the Tetragrammaton, which is Yud-He, Vav-He, the compassionate and gracious God. So what do we learn about God? He's compassionate, he's gracious. There's grace right here in the Torah. Slow to anger. I don't know about you, but I have stressed God in my life. If you, son, had done some of the things I had done, I'd probably be angry at you. But God is so gracious, slow to anger. The manifestation of that.
Yep, and abundant in loving kindness and truth, showing mercy to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, yet by no means leaving the guilty unpunished, but bringing the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children to the third and fourth generation. And what I love about this is it's right after the golden calf. It's amazing God, how forgiving God is. And even right before these 13 attributes, Adonai asks Moses to carve 2 new tablets.
Yes.
And I think it's an amazing turn.
Moses did it this time.
Yeah.
It wasn't God. It wasn't done by the finger of God this time. So
yeah, and he reminds him that he broke it, which is funny.
That's a great parental principle. Okay, you want it, you're going to have to make it now.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing that we get to see this 180 right after our time of Passover. And I think it's one of the reasons why it is a holiday reading is because we've gone through the painful days of Passover, and now we're reflecting upon God during this time.
Right. There was a lot of heartache. There was a lot of crying, not just from slavery, not just from the slavery of 430 years, but if an entire city, an entire state, suddenly the firstborn of every household died, can you imagine the kind of screams and agony that would have been? And so now,
and then he also ends up cutting a covenant with them.
Exactly.
Which is just really amazing. In verse 10 of 34, I'm cutting a covenant before all your people. I will do wonders such as I have not been done in all the earth or in any nation. All the people you are among will see the work of Adonai, for what I'm doing with you will be awesome.
Will be awesome.
I love how we throw around the word awesome, but this is truly a great application of it.
When God moves, it's awesome. Plain and simple. No matter, and he's talking about, this is signs and wonder stuff here. The stuff you can't explain. The stuff that may be loud, and the stuff that's doesn't make a lot of noise.
Yeah, and it's also the first reference of the Feast of Matzot.
Right.
Too, which is a lot of people, we mentioned it in the last Torah portion, but there is a difference between, most people think Passover's all 8 days, but really Passover's just the first day.
Right.
And the Feast of Matzot is every day during the week. And so we see that reference here in verse 18. You are to keep the Feast of Matzot for 7 days. You are to eat matzot.
That's right.
As I commanded you at the time appointed in the month of Aviv. For in the month of Aviv you came out from Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting that, we don't really spend a lot of time on that, but it's one of the reasons we eat unleavened bread for all 7 days.
And it's such a huge, as we talked about earlier, it's such a huge shift in anybody's diet. Mm-hmm. That it reminds you, this is serious business. This is a serious thing that happened, because it reminds us of how our forefathers, your spiritual forefathers, had to get out so suddenly.
Yeah, and the other thing is, matzot, the whole concept is no chametz in it, right?
No
and
leavening,
we see Yeshua talking about chametz in the new covenant.
Oh, yeah.
And regarding to it as sin. And so, it's another way to bring Yeshua into the Passover season, that Yeshua was without chametz.
Right.
And we need to be without chametz.
And Paul talks about it, and this is really where the scriptural connection is in 1 Corinthians, I believe it's chapter 5, where Paul actually says, take out, don't you know that a little leaven, a little yeast up or leavens up the whole batch. He's talking about what sin does to a human being.
Yeah, it says in 1 Corinthians 5.
Go ahead and read that, Joseph.
It is It is, just give it a second. It says, your boasting is no good. Because he's talking about people doing things that are bad, but saying that they're believers. Right. Or followers of God.
That's called what again?
Lying?
Hypocrisy.
That too.
And lying.
It says, your boasting is no good. Don't you know that even a little chametz leavens the whole batch of dough? Get rid of the old chametz, so you may be a new batch, just as you are unleavened. For Messiah, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. So we see Paul referencing the time of Passover. Right. And so I think that's also one of the reasons why there is a whole feast of matzot, is because we're thinking about our salvation, we're thinking about the sins that we've done, and we want to get away from it.
It's almost like a reset that you get to have. You know, it's like a cleanse.
It kind of is.
You think about it,
and that's a lot what the two major semi-annual holiday seasons are all about. The fall feast and the spring feast. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of turning back to God. Teshuvah, and it's all about getting away from what's bad and getting back to God.
Indeed it is. Well, listen, we just hope you have a wonderful rest of your Passover week.
Yes.
Hang in there with no leaven.
Yeah, you'll get
tough,
through it.
You will get through it.
Yeah.
All right. From us here at the Bible Society, God bless you and have a wonderful week.